Good evening, my dear friends. I would like to share a short story here. In a town lived two wealthy merchants. One of the merchants' name was Ali. Ali decided he wants to go see the world. So he saw his best friend, who was also a very wealthy merchant in the same city. His friend says, well, when are you leaving? He says, I'm going to sell my business. I'll sell my home and everything, and then I'll leave. So he made plans, arranged his trip. On the last day, he came to visit his friend, and he said, listen, I would like for you to keep this jar for me. And he goes, okay, no big deal. What's in it? He goes, oh, just some olives. He goes, all right. Here's the key to my house. I trust you. You can keep it in my house. Just find a place and put it. It's okay. So he took the jar, went to his friend's house, left the jar there, came back and handed his friend the key. And then they wished him goodbye, and the guys that were working there all wished him goodbye. He left. The first week, Ali sent a letter to his friend. Oh, I'm in North Africa. I'm having so much fun. A month later, received another letter. Oh, I'm having a ball. I'm in East Africa. Then a year went by, 2 years went by, 3 years went by, never heard from his friend anymore. And time went by. By this time, the friend who stayed in the city and had his business was enjoying his life, his business. He's now married, and his wife was expecting a baby. And so that night, his wife says, you know what I crave? And he goes, what? She says, olives. And he goes, oh gee, where in the world do you expect me to find olives at this time? All the merchants are sleeping. But what I could do is this. Ali left me a vase, and he told me there are olives in it. I'll get you some olives. And she says, oh no, don't touch them. You know how life is. The minute you touch things that belong to people, they suddenly show up. He goes, it's my friend, he don't mind. Let me get you some olives. So his friend went down, searched the house, and he found the jar. Opened it. Of course there were olives in there. But as he to pour some of the olives out, here comes gold, nuggets, diamonds, jewels, coins, wealth. And he came back to the room and he told his wife, listen, you're right. I'll get some olives for you tomorrow morning. The next morning, life continued as it usually did. And guess who showed up? After all these years, it's almost 8 years, is his friend. And says, hey, how you doing? I'm so happy to see you. They were both happy. They talked and everything. And he goes, oh, by the way, I'm here to pick up that jar that I left in your house. He goes, oh, no problem, Ali. Here's the key to the house. You know, I trust you, friend. Go get your jar. So he went to the house, grabbed his jar, came back to where his friend is at, the business site, and handed the friend back the key. And he goes, oh, by the way, I stayed in a hotel. You know, maybe I might invite you and your wife to come for dinner. He goes, no, it's the other way around. Well, you're our guest. We'll invite you. He went to the hotel. He opened the jar. And to his surprise, it is full of olives. There are no gold nuggets, no coins, nothing in it. He was shocked, put everything back to the jar, ran to his friends and says, listen, I have a problem. And he goes, what are you talking about? He shakes his head. He says, you won't understand this. The jar that I left in your house had jewels in them. They're gone. And I'm in trouble. And that's why I came back. I've lost all my money. And he goes, well, I can lend you some money. You're my friend. He goes, no, you don't understand. The jar had so much wealth in it. He goes, are you accusing me of stealing? He says, no, I'm not. I'm just letting you know. He goes, look, I was trying to be nice to you. I will now ask you in respect to please leave my place of business so you don't embarrass me in front of the workers. And I don't ever want to see you again. Take your jar and goodbye. You're a very ungrateful man. And Ali turned around and walked away. He went and see a lawyer. The lawyer questioned him and says, did you have a witness that you put diamonds in that jar? No. Did you have witness that you have olives in that jar? No. Does anybody else know you have olives in that jar? He said, yes, only my best friend knew it. He goes, okay, I'll bring the case to the king, but please do not expect much, because this is an impossible case to arrive to the truth. In the meantime, the case got to the king. For 2 days, the king wrestled with the thoughts of who's honest and who's dishonest. So that night, the king went out for a walk, disguised himself with some of the people that work with him. And as they're going by, they saw under the moonlight, there's some kids reenacting the case of Ali and his friend and about the jar. So he says, let's watch them. Watch them, and the lawyers, they all spoke. And everybody stated their case. There was a young boy who was watching them and says, excuse me. And they go, what do you want? He goes, didn't Mama and Papa says, after 7 years, the olives will have been now vinegar? And the king smiled. He goes, there's the answer to the case. I will need that boy tomorrow in the courthouse, in the palace. The next day, everybody showed up. People were laughing. The wealthy guy showed up, both merchants. And then the case began. The lawyers that state their case. And everybody shake their head and says, oh, it's impossible to decide this case. So after everything is finished, they ask the king, what's your decision? The king says, I have a young kid in the courtroom that will decide the case. And they escort the little boy in. And the king said, tell everyone here in the jury, what did your mom and dad said? He says, my mom and dad said, after 7 years, olives are vinegar. So if we taste what's in the jar, it shall taste like vinegar. And if it is vinegar, Ali is a liar. If it's not, his friend has something to answer to. Then the king turned around and says, do we have any olive farmers here? And this is the Middle East. And they all raised their hand up, yes. Is it true what the kid said? They go, oh yeah, after a couple of years, it's starting to go bad. It becomes vinegar. So the king says, can you please open the jar? And they open the jar. And everybody that's an olive grower taste the olives. And the king said, okay, what's your verdict, guys? They go, this olive is of this year. It is fresh. And the king turned around and looked at the other wealthy merchant and said, it's a miracle. You haven't seen your friend for over 7 years. And the olive is fresh, and it's of this year. In that moment, one of the merchants stood up and said, yes, he bought them from me about 3 weeks ago. I know him. My dear friend, the moral of the story is this. You may be in a situation where whatever you're doing, It's almost impossible to state your case, but just give it time. Things will reveal themselves. It's in the possible, it becomes possible. And one of the wisest books said, what is hidden to the wise and the prudent is revealed to the babe and suckle. I want to thank you for listening to this short story. That's almost 10 minutes and 28 seconds long. Good evening here. I'll be online for a little.